time our Protoss player faced this legendary Zerg, he stunned us all and defeated him in a best of 5. Can he repeat? Well, we won't have to wait to find out, because it's showtime!
Let it begin.
But if you think our Zerg player's just gonna sit around and let him repeat, you got another thing coming. Because Protoss is always in peril when they're facing Serral! Okay, I might be a little bit hyped, I admit it. And that drone is badly off course to take his natural. Did he think he was getting hatch blocked, or is he up to skullduggery? No, the second one is going for the hatch. That first drone is an early scout, or he's a cheeser. I don't think when Serral cheeses you can even call it cheese. It's like high-class cheese. He's like Puel, the most expensive cheese in the world. 600 USD a kilogram. Serral's drone is like lurking in the bushes here. Lovely fuchsia-colored bushes because we're playing on Romanticide. Showtime did scout. He's going to confirm it's a hatch first build. And then he's about to learn the hard way that Serral saved up 300 minerals to leave a doggy dump at his natural. Instant reaction by Showtime. His construction probe immediately starts the attack, and 2 more probes join it. A 4th will take up the job of adding the cyber core and then immediately join the war effort. Then comes a 5th. Showtime's response feels clinical and practiced. He knows exactly what he's doing in this situation. Serral goes extractor pool. He's about 15 to 20 seconds behind his usual timing. Will he get sufficient value in disruption? The zealot's out and already the hatch can't take much more of this. Is Serral ready with the cancel? It feels to me like he's cutting it so close, but to him it's probably just another day at the office. Wow, I'm staring straight at it and I didn't even see the drone before it converted to a spawning pool. And that's the end of this gore fest. Showtime plants his nexus on top of the entrails. Serral's probe actually escapes and it's gonna get a scout on top of this. Showtime is gonna so want it dead. His natural is done, he just needs his spawning pool to finish before he can do anything with it. Which will happen right about now, my funk soul brothers. Wow. Leave it to me to say funk and soul in the most white way possible. Anywho, 2 queens, 4 lings. It's the Serral standard, it's just a little bit late. Showtime's already got his adept out. No warp gates, no tech tree. He is though gonna get cold vengeance on that drone. Nobody escapes the shade. Death has come for him. And that's our first blood of the series. Serral doesn't care, he's already started ling speed. Showtime has sent his zealot across the map. He goes straight for the 3rd base location. He pulls back when he sees the lings there, but then the lings flee. If it's a game of chicken, everybody's blinking. Serral does not want to send the lings to do a queen's job. He almost has his 300 minerals ready, but Showtime might be reinforcing this little standoff. There's a pair of adepts on the way. A pair of queens are about to serve an eviction notice on that zealot. He'd love to snipe that drone. It's an escalating arms race. Adept appears, lings appear. Showtime will back off and concede the 3rd base location to Serral. But there are still a couple of shades poking around. Nope, they were just exploratory. Back at home, Showtime finished his Stargate and he started a Void Ray. His warp gates were late, but they're halfway done now. Oh, the adepts are gonna try again. Shade goes in. I think it's fake. I think it's just a look-see. They vanish. I'm only wrong 50% of the time. Serral may not have the scout, but he's making a spore anyway. Showtime's added a stalker, who's making it hard for overlords to get inside to take a look. Serral's gonna try streaming some lings. Yes, they want to do damage, but at this stage and this level, information is even better. Showtime's original zealot is being used to set up a defense at the 3rd base location. There's no nexus there yet, as these lings will soon find out. Oh, but they might be able to get the probe! And the zealots! And they'll learn about the Void Ray. A nice little pickup for the gasless lings. Gasless. There's probably like an 8-year-old fart joke in there somewhere. Oh, the adepts are not done. They haven't gone home. They're still sending in shades, which are completing. Showtime suicides his adepts to go for drones. They solidified right in front of those queens. Are they going to get away with this brazen attack? No, they die. They did get the scout on the roach one. Showtime takes his 3rd with a replacement probe. Lair Tech almost done for Serral. Oracle on the way for Showtime. Lings streaming at the third. This game has been cooking since the opening seconds. These two fighters just can't wait to hit each other, can't you tell? It's a single Oracle, headed for the main to see if he can get some damage done, and Overlord's gonna see it. There's one Queen and one Spore to defend. Oh, the Pulsar Beam is wasted on the Queen, and that Oracle has to get out. Not so much an Oracle dive as it was an Oracle belly flop. But Showtime is distracted. He knows there's Lings licking their lips at that third base. A single Void Ray can't stop them all. Oh! Serral baits the Void Ray out so he can run right by it. He tries for a door challenge, but he will find a Stalker there. He forces out the warpment of another Adept and he escapes. Serral's had to pay for Overlord's speed. He can't get his scout any other way. The Oracle's still not able to get anything done, but Showtime is keeping it alive. I thought that was an Overseer morphing, but it's Overlord sacks. Serral just picked up 4 Queens. I do believe we're about to see the very trendy German taxi. Queens are too slow off of creep to attack, but if you can micro a Drop Lord with Overlord speed, you can have them on your opponent's doorstep. Showtime immediately starts making another Void Ray. The Drop Lords are key targets here. But the beauty of this is that the Void Rays are going to be too busy to hit the roaches. This is such a treat. I didn't know Serral did this. Showtime has a double Stargate though. He's making Void Rays a lot faster than I had considered. It's dangerous out there for Drop Lords and roaches. Oh, Showtime gets an Overlord. Only 2 of the 4 Queens escaped. That's huge. Are there enough Queens left to deal with the double Void Ray production? Serral's gonna have to take a ton of damage just trying to get to the front door. That last Overlord has 4 Queens. Showtime gets it! 3 Queens die with it! And that wall has a whole squad of Stalkers behind it. This attack is going nowhere. What? Serral finds a vacant third. These pros just love making me look bad. Just when I thought this attack was a complete turkey, he hits the third, he drops in the main, and he's gonna get the third. It's our first laser light show of this series. That is how you celebrate a best of 5. Showtime defended this so well, and still he's scrambling with the cleanup. There's 8 proved kills and a disruption in mining time. Also, Serral supply blocks Showtime. Showtime's got fancy new warp gates and he can't use them to build. Serral takes the economic lead and immediately starts a Hydra Den. Zealot leg speed upgrade for Protoss. Serral has to remake all of his Queens though. He lost them all in the attack. Showtime has considered this. He's sending out his Void Rays to counter. That's a lot of Void. Showtime's squadron is not devoid of anything. Wait, Serral's not gonna get the third again, is he? There's no way, there's too many Stalkers. Serral with the pullback. Zerg is not taking his feet off the pedal. A Ling-loaded Drop Lord is headed for the main. Showtime will see his attack and raise him 8 prismatic alignments. Spores and hatcheries are both armored. Showtime's doing an extra +10 against armored targets. Ravagers are not armored. They take their suits of armor off when they de-roachify. Right now they're pretty happy about that. They chase those Void Rays out. Showtime has his Gateway Explosion planned, and he's adding a Battle Duck. The Lings want to break up the party, but Showtime's Warp-In of Adepts prevents it. Both players with Class A defense. They both take the hits, and somehow both players come out stronger. This match is not going to be decided in the early game. The Lings pop down and decide the water's a little bit too cold. They get back in the Drop Lord and needs to get out of there before a Void Ray finds it. Overlords, you guessed it, also armored. Look at that, how smoothly Serral's got his Hydra transition underway. He's got the ranged attack upgrade and +1 both on the way, but also his infestation pit to get him to Hive Tech. Unless he wants to do something crazy like Swarm Host. Not exactly a Void Ray stopper. That Drop Lord is done. No, it got away. Speed Lords for the win. Void Ray's not getting into the main. The Queens have it covered. That Drop Lord is such a pest. He's not getting anything done, but he's not giving up. He's gonna see Battle Duck researching Storm for use against his Hydras. Showtime recalls his Void Rays back home. A major overreaction to the threat, but hey, why not? Let's see that Overlord dodge all of this. Who needs Flux Veins? It's the circle of life. The Drop Lord is gonna water the plants with his blood. Maybe that's why all the foliage has that ungodly pink color. Well, it's not really pink. Maybe I should say magenta. Showtime is working on a warp prism. He's got Archons now, too. Hydra speed just about done, but Serral's working on a lurker den. The underground spine shooters are in every ZVP game right now. But the real story is that Showtime has a zealot-loaded warp prism on the way. Not entirely sure if Serral would have caught sight of it with his floodlings. They're focused on trying to shut down this fort. That's not gonna happen. Those lings are gonna need to come back with bigger claws or maybe AK-47s. Showtime's prioritized the defense of his expansion and parked his army right outside. For now at least. The likely playbook is that Showtime's gonna try to put on some pressure with his army and use that distraction to sneak his warp prism in. If Serral's loaded up heavy on the air defense, he might not be ready for a zealot warp in. One thing that strikes me though, is that lurkers have always been pretty good against zealots. That's why most lurkers have tattoos on their underside that say, "I heart zealots." Okay, the warp prism's making its move. Showtime's waving his army around trying to attract attention. I'm sure he's not entirely adverse to attacking if he gets a decent opening. Zealots warp in, there are lings to defend and hydras. I like Showtime's thinking because the spores weren't able to contribute. But it does look like Serral still allocated sufficient defense to his main. How he managed to do that every single time, I'll never know. Oh, we got a weather report, people. Showtime's fake pressure is looking pretty tangible right about now. Big time corrosive bile hits from Serral. It can't be easy hitting Void Rays. Showtime fires back with more storms. But he is getting chased off, and look at Showtime's reaction. He started a fleet beacon. We may get to see that top tier tech out of Protoss. Maybe even a little golden armada. I'm not so sure Serral intends to let us get there. He's making Hydras 15 at a time. The power of Showtime's fourth base has just kicked in. He's just overtaken Serral on minerals per minute. Not happy on even bases, Serral starts up his fifth. And it's a Shazam! There's the recall home and all the Void Rays get their shields back. I could watch that all day. Wait, I kinda do. Showtime finishes ground weapons too, but what's of interest is he's started +1 air attack. I think we're gonna see that big air transition. Yes, it's double carrier production. He just wanted to add to his Archon count first to make sure he can do so safely. We've seen Protoss be very vulnerable when they're caught with their pants down dumping all their money into carriers. Pro tip guys, when building carriers, always keep your pants up. I always research belts and suspenders. Showtime starts expansion number 5. He won't be that far behind Serral. The Night King is long distance mining in preparation for his new base to come online. Serral's adding in that burrow speed upgrade. And look at this. Forget ling drops. We've reached the stage of lurker drops. Though, who needs drops when you can just walk right in on that new 5th Protoss base? Miscalculation by Showtime. Not only is he forced to cancel his Nexus, he throws away all the defensive units he was trying to warp in. They just died. And further, he's forced to pull his army back to deal with the threat. But he will get some good kills and a boatload of vengeance for his efforts. Serral was so close to maxing out too. Showtime will catch that lurker drop. We'd give him an A+ in defense if he had an observer to go with that. That last lurker is going to be a royal pain in the old pylon, if you know what I'm saying. Carriers 1 and 2 are here and loaded up with interceptors. Carriers 3 and 4 are in production. Serral is researching glial reconstitution, aka roach speed. That's pretty late. He may have been a tad busy building a giant monolithic Hydra lurker army. And this is something Serral is so good at. He always knows where to put the spines. It's like he reads his opponent's mind. So we hit the 14-minute mark. Both our players max out. Showtime's mining about 200 more minerals a minute, whereas Serral's pulling in 300 more gas per minute. We have ourselves a very close game. Serral is up a base, but only for the next few seconds. Those Hydras were trying to blend in with the foliage. That didn't seem to work. Showtime's adding a 3rd Stargate and +2 air attack. He's going for that killer space armada. Once you go gold, it never gets old. Okay, that didn't work at all, but you got what I was trying for. Okay, this is in the category of wishful thinking. A 4 Zealot drop at this stage of the game is not going to work, but there could be a killer warp in behind it, I suppose. Serral with the Viper Abduct. Guess what he's added into his tech? The killer warp in does not happen and the Zealots get readily cleaned up. I guess it does buy Showtime a little bit of time to get that extra base up and work on his air transition. We talk about the air units all the time, but in the current meta, one of the biggest components is actually the Templar on the ground. You have to have the Storms, otherwise the Corruptors are king. But a couple of Storms on some bunched up Corruptors, it's enough to give the Protoss air the edge. I love the Zealots' enthusiasm, but they are writing checks they cannot cash. The thing is, Showtime has so much minerals coming in right now that he can afford to throw his Zealots at the static defense. There's the response from Serral, double spires. And he's planting the Spore Forest. And the timing looks right because carrier number 6 is about to finish and number 7 is in production. A corner base for Showtime. That is some fancy real estate. The property taxes alone on that location are crazy. But what can you do? It gets you into one of the best school districts out there. All kidding aside, it's going to put Showtime ahead on bases. It is so difficult for the Zerg to win late game with an inferior economy. If this trend continues, it will be advantage Showtime. Showtime's going to celebrate by getting aggressive. He's coming right onto the creep here. He catches some lurkers before they can burrow. Look at the forest do damage to those interceptors. If this trend continues, Showtime might mix in some Tempests. I'm kind of hoping I'll finally get to see a Protoss player use Tectonic Destabilizers. That's the upgrade that gives Tempest plus 40 against structures. That's the Spore Killer. But I'm way ahead of myself, given that we haven't actually seen a Tempest in this game. Oh, great abducts! Serral separates the weakest from the herd and the Hydras bring them down. Gotta be honest, a lot of interceptors have died in the making of this movie. The carrier guns are empty and need to reload. Serral tries to take advantage and gets a Storm for his troubles. What he can do is expand, and so he will. He gets a corner base of his own. Oh my goodness, it's the Archon Barbershop Quartet. Okay, fine, Quintet, but it doesn't sound as good. Or even make any sense, but... So, I'm starting to feel like we could get that dramatic split map scenario. Our players cut the map in half along the diagonal line. Or this could be over in a big flame of glory in the next 10 seconds. I'm thinking definitely one of the two. Serral's reached the stage where he's researching all the other upgrades he didn't get around to before. Pathogen glands, adrenal glands, mammary glands. Oh wait, maybe not that last one. Showtime's also filling out his collection. A Dark Shrine and Gravitic Boosters, the Warp Prism speed. Also +3 air attack. Serral starts +2 air attack. The arms race continues, but I'm very confident the players will reach a peace accord and both agree to stop at +3. There will be no +4 attack upgrades, because that would be mutually assured destruction. Also, it does not exist. And speaking of wild upgrades, Serral is researching chitinous plating at his Ultralisk cavern, which is finished. When you think about defending the Protoss air, you don't normally think about Ultras. The Ultralisk melee attack is a little bit vertically impaired. Ultras cannot hit carriers. But as I understand it, there's two schools of thought behind this strategy. One is that Ultras can survive storms. That means they can live to assassinate Templar and Stalkers, and those are the units that hurt your Corruptors before your Corruptors can take on the carriers. The other school of thought is that the Ultra is so heavily armored, it can shrug off the interceptor attacks and just shred your opponent's Nexus. I don't love that, because the game can suddenly flip to a base race at any moment. And because the Ultras are so bulky, they're not great base racers. In those situations where there's minimal defense, they just kind of trip over each other and get in each other's way. Whereas the carriers can float base to base to base and just do so much damage. So both players are trying to poke in here, but neither's making any significant headway. What's really happening is both players are building banks. That's good for Showtime. He's pulling in a lot more minerals and gas at this point. Oh, recall to defend. Serral sees the Azure glow in the Nexus and he gets out of there. What's been great for Serral is that the players are equal on resources lost. Equality in that category speaks very well for the Zerg. Once Showtime starts to mine out, he's gonna have to do better. Not like he hasn't been awesome throughout. You can't go toe-to-toe with Serral for 20 minutes and not be awesome. I really do think Serral would prefer to end the game. I think a lot of Zerg players have concerns with the Protoss composition in the ultra late game phase. That golden armada becomes really hard to kill. Pause for a horror pinata? I like to think the Zealots take a shower after a hard day ripping apart hatcheries. I know the force fields probably protect them from the blood splatters, but just for psychological hygiene. Okay, this is actually going to be base number 7 for Showtime. Remember, there's only 8 bases on your side of the map. We weren't playing no rush 20 minutes here. This was do everything you can to annihilate your opponent 20 minutes. Showtime's gas bank is starting to get pretty significant. Oh, Serral starts up a Greater Spire. That might be because they're cool and he wants one for his collection, or maybe he just wants better armor on his Spire. But it might also be that we're going to see some Broodlords. He's got 19 Corruptors right now. He might be able to spare some for Broodlords. Serral rips down Showtime's 7th base. See, this is why we can't have nice things. When you think of split map scenarios, you don't usually think of Romanticide, because the bases are so close to each other. They're going to wind up mining next door to each other. And with Lurker range and Storm and Interceptors, it's hard to see how that's going to be viable. I believe Showtime just dropped a Storm on an alleged changeling. There was no evidence, there was no trial, there was no due process. What if that was an actual Zealot? It wasn't, but it could have been. Actually, no, it couldn't have. Was he going to save that carrier? No. This is how Serral continues to keep the resource loss tab equal. Bizarrely, it's actually Protoss that's lost about 50 more units. That probably reflects that most of the losses have been all those Zealots that Showtime's been throwing out there. With the huge bank of minerals that Showtime has, they're almost the equivalent of the 25 mineral Zerglings. They're practically free, except for the part where they actually cost minerals, but other than that, they're absolutely free. So with Serral maxing out on Corruptors, Showtime now eases up on the carriers and starts mixing back in Void Rays. Void Rays can be your Corruptor killer. It's that bonus damage against armored targets with prismatic alignment that we talked about earlier. And he's finishing Flux Veins. I was just about to complain. That's the upgrade that increases the speed and acceleration of the Void Ray. It only costs 100. Showtime is really dropping the photon cannons now. And why not? He's so flush with cash and Serral just won't stop coming at him. Showtime's fleet is too slow to be everywhere at once. But the photon cannons, if they've got shield batteries, can give him the time he needs to get there to defend. Those Ultras have the speed upgrade, by the way, but you can probably tell that. Serral's getting his +3 attack, his +3 armor, his +3 air armor. Showtime's getting his +3 shield. We're getting a bit of a Groundhog Day phenomenon with those corner bases dying over and over. Serral's really breaking up his forces so he can attack multiple locations at once. That's hard for Showtime to do. Oh! Serral sees the recall and pounces. Get those free hits where you can. That's the first real drop in Showtime supply in quite some time. Did Serral just create a window that he can capitalize upon? Note Showtime's composition change. He's remaking his army with Void Rays and Immortals. And Dark Templar. The Void Rays we've talked about. It used to be the case that Immortals were not considered to be viable late game units. You would often see Protoss suiciding those units at the enemy's static defense in order to free up supply for the rest of their army. Here though, Showtime has to deal with these Ultralists somehow. They don't just look cool in a tuxedo. They can really lay waste to the Protoss base. Having a high damage armor puncher like the Immortal would really help. And so now it is actually Serral that has the bigger mineral bank. And now that Serral's lost supply, it's his turn to rejig his composition. He's gonna add in Infestors. I'm guessing that fungal growth is gonna be his answer to the Void Ray problem. Mass Void Rays really clump up. And anything that clumps up is vulnerable to fungal growth. Having lived through fungal growth in high school, I can personally attest that it is not fun. Consult your local physician for a topical remedy. You don't have to live with it, people. Free yourselves from yeast, molds, and all other eukaryotic organisms. Oh my god, that's 16 corruptors. It looks like a zillion, though the number's actually gone down. Serral's been quietly making broodlords. He's figured out that the true goal of this game is to make me happy. Oh sneaky, those DTs are gonna wait for the hatchery to finish before they kill it. It's that kind of jerk-like attitude is why Dark Templars never get invited to parties. The base is going to die again, no council. And this time, Serral doesn't even get to mine 300 minerals out of it first. Having completely maxed out his air and ranged attack upgrades, Serral is now going back and getting +1 melee attack. Oh, Broodlord action! Look at the size of the escort behind the Broodlord. Showtime's response? He's making a mothership. Showtime is losing his static defense, and he's gonna tell his mummy. When you play Protoss, yes, you should get your mother to fight your battles for you. Now, if Showtime goes and mixes in some Tempest, he'll be able to make the Zerg pay by taking parting shots every time the Zerg tries to retreat like that. Because you can't just chase after the Zerg, because Serral's got those infestors now. They're waiting with that fungal growth and possibly neural parasite. Yes, Serral has neural parasite. Not that he has anything against the other kinds of parasites. I'm sure he treats all his parasites equally. It's just that the neural parasite upgrade would be particularly nasty right now. Another good reason for Showtime to keep chrono boosting that mothership. I really love the balance tweak that made the mothership immune to that. Broodlords wrecking havoc at another base. Showtime getting the 26-minute blink upgrade. Anybody remember that 45-minute Sue versus Need game? Blink became essential in that one. After going all the way to the top of the tech tree, it became all about the low tech. Oh, are we gonna get ourselves a laser light show? Yes we are. Spectacular. Showtime has not been able to deal with the Broodlords. Slowly but surely, Serral's fighting his way back to parity here. I was about to say they're even on economy, but I think Showtime might just be swinging that pendulum back in his favor. And the neat part is, that was low tech. Oh, fungal growth in the Dark Templar, that's nasty. Is it hard to scratch an itch if you can't see it? Or something so boss about remaking a base before the enemy's even left? It's like the ultimate whatever. I don't even care. And speaking of low tech, it's the 27-minute Baneling Nest. I think Serral's got a new plan to deal with all the cannons that Showtime's got strewn around everywhere. And we've got Tempests with a chrono-boosted tectonic destabilizer. This is like a late Christmas, man. All the toys are on display. Serral's looking to get his fungal growth on. Showtime needs his High Templar. There's the feedbacks. That is the new drama story. Templar versus Infestors. Who's got the lead on the micro? And just to kind of explain how that drama plays out, fungal growth has a range of 10. The Templar feedback has a range of 10. The long-range bombing Tempest has a range of 10. And oh yeah, the upgraded Lurker has a range of 10. But if the mothership is cloaking your unit and it's on the edge of the cloak, you can sort of extend your range. But that doesn't work if the Zerg has detection, and so on and on and on goes the rock, scissors, paper. Which player's brain can handle the permutations fast enough without turning into a drooling vegetable? Yes, the crushing mental meltdown. That's what makes this game so great. Not for the faint of brain. Okay, so Showtime really only has 3 functional bases at this point. Whether this one falls or not, it's pretty much mined out. But Showtime has a bank that's well over 6,000 minerals and well over 6,000 gas. It's like he's mined an entire base and he hasn't spent it. So even if Serral cuts him off, which he's sort of starting to do, Protoss is still going to have this really big punch. It's really neat though to see Broodlords playing a pivotal role in a major game again. After they got the nerf back, they kind of went out of style for a while. What I'm trying to wrap my head around right now is this is only game 1 of a best of 5. We're about to hit the half-hour mark, and I'm going to have to wonder if anybody's going to have anything left for game 2. Oh, the Tempest dodged the fungal. And then they come back and fire some long-range bombs. They pick off a Broodlord. Has Showtime found his answer? Has he found it within time? Oh, it's a fragrant violation. Serral has claimed both corner mineral patches. We are no longer a split map. Serral has crossed the neutral zone. There's so little minerals left there, I'm not sure it's that tactically important. But psychologically, it's a statement. Showtime's trying to retake it with a Nexus. He has no idea. His probe's gonna find out. That's so cool, a ghost Nexus over top of an erupting hatch. The Banelings have been incorporated. Serral has found the one way to enhance the level of bloodshed. He's making 36 more Zerglings and finishing off his +3 melee attack. We're gonna have to start playing the trivia quiz game where you have to guess what upgrade have the players not got. There will be large cash prizes donated by the adjutant. You see what I have to work with here? We need the large cash prizes. Well, watching Broodlords mercilessly rip things apart has always been a kind of prize for me. This is an important base for Showtime. He may have taken the top right back, but there's not a lot of minerals there. This laser light show matters. The economy has flown over to the Zerg side. It is now Serral who has the superior mining. The problem is Showtime still has his golden armada and a pretty big bank to go with it. Unless and until Serral actually deals with that, he can't take this game. That means at some point we have to have that mega fight. What Serral is doing is sapping Showtime's ability to reinforce his golden armada. In case you were wondering, Showtime hasn't made any new production facilities in ages, but he still has 16 warp gates and 5 stargates, and a whole bunch of dancing zealots apparently. There, they figured it out. They're trying to get to that lurker. Didn't I say lurkers were really good against zealots? Apparently not good enough to take on 20 of them. Oh, Showtime strikes back. That's one of Serral's few mining bases. Neither player has a very impressive economy at this point. Nobody's replenishing their workers because they don't really have a lot of patches to put them on. What they do both have is really big banks of cash, fungal interceptors, and tectonic destabilizers in action. Serral's gonna lose another core base. Both players are being super patient. They know they have to win that mega battle, or the last 30-odd minutes are meaningless. So both players are prepared to wait for that perfect moment. But with that huge level of patience, nobody's making that critical mistake. Big hits on those Broodlords. The Corruptors are swooping in, but Showtime is ready with the tempests and storms. There have been more bases in this top right-hand corner than there have been actual minerals. Okay, I am mentally ready for the big clash. I know it's coming. We've seen this play out before. Both players have had ample opportunity to revamp their composition and try to get it exactly right. We need to find out who's chosen wisely. Serral's adding Ultralists. They are slowly getting the job done on the ground, but they won't help the air effort. It's a tightrope of a delicate balance for our Zerg player. Oh man, both players are rebuilding their bases. I think we have to impose rules against that. Showtime is reacting by going back to carriers. Maybe you should make a Phoenix. That way you can say he's made every single air unit available in the game. Serral is definitely winning the ground war here. Immortals are not so good against Adrenal Gland +3 Lings. Of course, that Immortal was here for the Lurkers, of which there are no longer any on the map. The Night King Overmind has finally put them all to pasture. So really neither player is doing much in terms of mining right now, especially in terms of gas. They are both maxed once again, but neither player's bank is quite as impressive as it's been. I almost think that Showtime would like to trade out his less strategically important static defense at this point for Ultralists. Except that they're not so much trading as they are disappearing. This base, though, is no longer of any particular strategic importance, and the loss of the probes is almost just freeing up supply for him. And now Serral is quietly adding to his Corruptor count. I think he knows he's done his ground damage. He's got to prepare for what I maintain will be the coming air battle. I don't know where or when exactly, but I think it's coming. Of course, I probably said that 10 minutes ago. Nice to see there's an Oracle contributing. Tagging the Zerg Corruptors is very, very useful. Showtime does not want to get backstabbed or surprised by that fleet. Turn out the lights, because it's a laser light show! Hey, the Ultralists obstructed my view! Nice abducts. What Serral would really like to do with those Ultras is get at the production facilities. What he wants to do is inhibit Showtime's ability to remax in the event of an emergency, and that emergency is coming. The problem is, Showtime has been super diligent about putting all his production facilities, all of his Stargates, all of his Warp Gates in his main. The Ultras are going to have huge trouble getting at those. Showtime is making Archons. I think that's almost out of necessity. He's got more gas than minerals at this point. And an Archon can put some splash damage up at those Corruptors. Serral is maxing back out with Queens. He's also making a round of drones, but I think that's for spores. Oh, I think we're going to have to crown Serral the winner of the upgrade contest. He got more. I think the Queens are all about the transfuses. Serral's hoping to spam transfuse when the big battle comes. Did I mention there's going to be a big battle? I'm going to be so wrong if this turns into a base race. Ever the optimist, Serral's trying to rebuild at the corner bases. There goes Serral's last hatch with minerals. Neither player really has a functional base at this moment. Time warps go down. Serral does not want to fight in that. He pulls back. Both players are in economic ruin, but both players have titanic armies. Showtime's gonna kill this hatch just because Serral made it. It mined exactly 0 minerals and 0 gas, but his Razor instincts tell him to grab these bases whenever he can, so he does. How long would it take 2 Broodlords to bring down a cannon backed by 6 shield batteries? I'm kinda hoping we won't have to find out. I think the Broodlords are just summoning the Protoss army. Here we go! Fungal hits the Void Rays. There's a recall. The Corruptors pounds. The Void Rays escape, but now there's no Void Rays in Showtime's army. No, they're back. The recall was a short distance. Fungals on the carriers and the Tempest. Storms on the Corruptors. Neural Parasite on the carriers. It's pandemonium. Who's got this? The Zerg supply looks to be dropping faster. The Corruptors have thinned out. The carriers take the Fungals, but they survive. And it's Showtime's Golden Armada that comes out the victor. Can he capitalize before Serral rebuilds? Showtime has his window. His army is 3 times the size of the Zerg. Serral orders 12 Corruptors to try to get back into this. 3 Vipers. The Corruptors will be here in less than 29 seconds. Serral micro during the battle. He wasn't microing. Showtime's new wave of Void Rays is almost here. This is an epic intensity game. Can Showtime close it out? Showtime searches for a way to deliver the death blow. Showtime is almost remaxed. He's actually rebuilding that Nexus, but he doesn't really have any probes to actually mine from it. I don't think he should be rebuilding his economy. I think he should be destroying Serral's. He agrees. He's going for it. This base is forfeit. Serral has no way to defend it. Serral is a merchant in the business of buying time. Serral has his next wave of Corruptors. Is that enough? Serral will annihilate this Nexus. Both players have exhausted their banks. Showtime was able to remax though. Serral was not. Serral's last base in the top center is under assault. Serral is no longer mining. Showtime is barely mining. It's the second wave fight. The Fungals hit, but there is way too much Protoss. The Storms hit the Corruptors. Serral GG's. Showtime takes the series. No, he doesn't. He just takes game 1. That felt like game 5. It should have been game 5. Just give the man the entire tournament trophy. Was that a great game or an exhausting game or both? I'm not sure. There's no way we're going to analyze that. Everyone just take a mental break. Maybe just clear your head by watching this bizarre scene of the Ghost Nexus. This, my friends, is Starcraft art. I call it Ode to Futility. It is both installation art and a performance piece and an interpretive dance. Tell me your heart does not go out to that probe. He slowly shuts down and just stops and does nothing. Man, I know I've had days like that. You know what might cheer up that little guy? Maybe take a moment to hit that subscribe button. I bet it would cheer him right up. As for the rest of us, let us see who has the mental stamina for Game 2. Adjutant, if you would please.
The game begins now.
Where can we possibly go from here? Well, to Jagannatha, I suppose. Our Zerg player has won 2 premier tournaments this year, DreamHack Summer and DreamHack Winter. He can win in snow, he can win in sun, because he is the Night King. He is Serral! Love this guy.
Current world rank 1.
Not bad. Room for improvement, but not bad. Okay, so a gate and go for Protoss. No deviations from standard at this point. A hatch first for Serral, though I see there's 20% less sticky strands than usual on his hatchery. That's a clear adjustment from Game 1. I don't think either player wants another 40-minute game. I think they've both got concrete ideas how they're going to time this out and end this much sooner. That said, there's no obvious signs of it yet. There's the extractor for Zerg to be followed by the pool that's going to be spotted by the probe. And that means Serral's gonna go 2 queens and 4 lings, and if he doesn't, I'm gonna have to eat my hat on air. Showtime's gonna expand with a Nexus. Can I please remind everyone not to do this at home? Warp gate technology is for accredited professionals only. There are countless numbers of household accidents as people try to warp in various structures. You can't just warp in an additional bedroom bath in your house without knowing what you're doing. Very precise pan-dimensional calculations are required. This isn't show and tell, people. This is Showtime!
Current world rank 11.
Well, what do you know? Serral only had 1-1. This guy's got 2. It's way better. There's the twin explosions of purple. And yes, it's 2 queens, 4 lings. The official Serral standard. As cool as it looks to watch, there's nothing to see here. Much more important is what happens after the core completes. A chrono-boosted adept, and a Stargate. No warp gates. That's gotta be coming though, right? Right? Yes. This new delayed warp gate thing is really throwing me off. But someone else who's been thrown off is this probe. He's filling out his first blood application. Last name Die, first name Don't Wanna. And we are denied my favorite graphic. Serral plants his 3rd instead. The adept actually did not go out across the map. She stayed home to guard. Sometimes that's a sign that Protoss is hiding tech. Ling speed for Serral, and that terrible racket is the destruction of the non-buildable plates. One day I'll have to tell the long boring story of why it is that players do that. But right now I want to tell you about this Void Ray. It's the all-new 2021 model complete with sunroof. The Protoss are always a sucker for the sunroof. The Adept is hunting down that scouting ling, and that's our first blood. The Void Ray is rallied to the south, but Serral's already pulled his Overlord there back. He's got another one hiding to the west here. He wants to know when Showtime goes for his 3rd base. In any event, that Overlord is now on the map. Serral's gonna go ahead and make himself a safety spore in his main. He hasn't seen the Stargate, but he didn't get this far by not knowing the possibilities. And it's exactly the right call because Showtime is making an Oracle. Serral really hasn't let up in his queen production, though. In theory, he should be in pretty good shape. Showtime's setting up to take his 3rd. Serral's Overlord is definitely gonna see it. There's a price for that, though. I think he's revealed himself to that Void Ray. Yes, he has. Well, now that Serral knows about the 3rd base, does he intend to try to shut it down? Or does he quietly counter by setting up his 4th base? Warp gates are finished. Showtime's gonna celebrate by blowing up an Overlord. It's a tradition. It's something you gotta do every holiday season. Alright, the Oracle is on deck. He's not waiting for any allies. He's gonna do this solo. No, he is not. He hits triple queens and he has to back out of there. Fortunately, shield damage only, no harm, no foul. Showtime going up to 5 gates. And he has a Twilight Council finishing up. This means there is that potential for the resonating glaives. Yes, there is. There is, though, no robo to go with it. Instead, Showtime's adding another Void Ray out of his Stargate. And there's a couple of Adepts warping in already. Serral's just about got his Roach Warren and he's working on lair tech. He's stockpiling Overlords so he can go big on roaches. They eat up that supply. Showtime's third is gonna complete. Serral's got very nice creep as always. But more importantly, he's got the ability to block off his natural. We've seen Serral do this before. It's an anti-shade barrier. Oh, that Oracle's still not having any luck. His stasis ward fails. Lair's gonna complete for Serral. That's gonna open up roach speed, which is super helpful in defending against the depths. The Void Rays are gonna make life hard for these Ling rabble-rousers. Serral would love to know how much time he has. I'm guessing not a lot, because Resonating Glaives is almost done. Serral started his +1 ranged attack. That Oracle is not giving up. If at first you don't succeed, Stasis ward again. Oh, he got a big one! That's a nice piece of econ damage. He got both queens. If there had been another Oracle there, he could have gone to town on those drones. Alright, it's time for the Peach Miasma. The pink smear is on its way. The Lings will see that, but at a cost of their lives. Serral's making a Hydra Den. That's a negative. He's making an infestation pit instead. He wants to leapfrog the hive, perhaps. I was wrong. Serral did not go for roaches. Showtime's trying to pull this off without a warp prism to reinforce. And he's just learned that Serral has completed his wall to protect his natural from the shades. This is rough for Showtime. He's forced to go toe-to-toe with these roaches, up the ramp no less. What he's got is that extra Void Ray support. They can really tear into those roaches, but there are 4 queens there. Serral's opened his wall and he's starting roach speed. I never like seeing the wall get cancelled, but Serral needs to get his own units out. Oh, the shade's over the mineral line. Serral has to readjust and pull his drones. The Adepts are now sandwiched. Showtime has brought a lot of firepower, but I still don't think it's enough. The Void Rays had to bug out from the queens. They're actually coming back now, but I think they're too late. Yeah, this is a very successful defense by Serral. Showtime is pulling out and looking to transition. He's ordered a Forge, a Battle Duck, and Zealot legs. Zealots just aren't as good when they only have an upper body. You should never skip leg day at the gym. The Forge completes and Showtime gets himself +1. But the real story is what Serral's doing. That infestation pit was not for Hive. He's going for Swarm Host. Showtime with the Gateway Explosion. I am going to love this, and I'll tell you why. In my book, Showtime is the #1 Swarm Host defender. At least give me top 3. I'd love to see him defend Serral's Swarm Host. And Serral's gone for 10 Mushroom Men. So this is a serious investment. It's not just a couple of support units. And Serral's attacking already. No Nidus Worm. I love this. If you're not going to use a Warp Prison, I'm not going to use a Nidus Worm. And the queens are coming. Nobody's being lazy today. It's take your queens for a walk day. No German taxis here. Bad timing for Showtime to try to take a 4th. He needs to cancel that right now. He does not, and it turns into little glowing Rubik's Cubes. The Protoss are huge fans of the cube. A lot of Templar can solve that thing in under 10 seconds. Serral's got a big lead up on Army here. Showtime's in trouble. Serral attacks Showtime's wall to try to bait out his army. Showtime responds, and here comes the Locust. Oh no, they're just going straight for the wall. That is a lot of firepower. Oh, they redirect. Showtime saves his natural, but now his army's completely out of position. The shield batteries at his 3rd are keeping him in this. Showtime tries to get shield batteries up at his natural, but the corrosive vials annihilate them. And 5 queens adding support. The Zealots love to go at them. The Swarm Hosts are in between Locusts. They can't help. But the Ravagers are like, no problem, bro. We got this. What a gory mess all around. The Void Rays are here. That's gonna help. Weren't the Queens supposed to deal with you two? I see Serral's pulled all his swarm hosts for a surprise attack on the 3rd. Showtime has anticipated it. He picks up a couple kills. And more importantly, he forces that premature detonation. The Locusts were not in ideal range. And with shield batteries, Showtime will be able to deal with this wave. Nexus overcharge. It is so good. Oh my god, is Showtime actually going to battle back from this? I had completely written him off for this game. Even the Oracle's getting in on this. But who is guarding against the Swarm Host? Somebody has to deal with the Swarm Host. They're still on cooldown for the moment, but only for the moment. Serral's done running. He reinforces his roaches. Was he running or was he luring? Showtime is way out of position now. But he's making a ton of Archons to try to protect his base. Swarm hosts are recharged. Locusts away. There is no battery overcharge available. Serral sends the Locusts at the Zealots. Showtime pulls them back and uses the Archons to chew up the Locusts. He's even going to try for his 4th again. But Serral orders a huge round of roaches. He's almost maxed. That 4th base is in the category of wishful thinking. This time, Showtime has the cancel. Oh my god, Serral's actually expanding his creep at the same time he's doing this. No, camping out in the acceleration zone does not make your cooldown go faster, but it does give you a cool green glow. But forget the Swarm Host. Does Serral have enough just on Roach Ravager alone here? He's actually got a squad bouncing between the main and the natural. Mortal Archon's a pretty good composition, but is it enough? That's 16 Locusts right there, and they're right on top of the Protoss army. Not even the Immortals can take that. There is a Photon overcharge, but Showtime's army supply is now half that of Serral. This cannot be sustainable. Serral finally kills the last pesky Void Ray. Only 4 Immortals and 2 Sentries left. No one can deny the swarm at this point. Serral just keeps remaxing. It's GG. Serral has evened up the series. Okay, so it was no game 1, but it was still a pretty cool game. For me, just because of the Swarm Host. Remember, Serral won over $250,000 playing Swarm Host against Stats at BlizzCon in 2018, where he won the global finals. That kind of makes him a Swarm Host king. So, pitting him against a prime Swarm Host defender like Showtime really gives me goosebumps. The problem was, Serral already had a pretty big edge in the game before the Swarm Host transition. Showtime's glaive timing really got smashed, and he was behind the 8 ball ever since that point. Once the Queens chased off the Void Rays, the Adepts just could not be expected to go toe-to-toe against Roaches. The idea is that the Adepts split the Roaches with their Shades, but since Serral had his wall up, that really wasn't an option available to Showtime. So he largely lost his investment for minimal return. You can recover from that, but maybe not against Swarm Host Serral. So just like that, our mighty best of 5 is now a best of 3. Adjutant, if you would please.
The game begins now.
Who's got this? Serral was pretty convincing in game 2. Oh, that probe's getting to work early. That probe looks like a potential hatch blocker. We'll have to keep an eye on him, but first let me tell you about the man behind the probe. Our Protoss player is the #1 player in all of Germany, ahead of such great Deutschlanders as Hero Marine, Lambo, and Gung Fu Banda. He is Showtime! Why is it that Germany has become so dominant in Starcraft? Oh yeah, there is kind of that South Korea. You know what I mean, and you definitely know what I mean when I say that Serral's not going to get to put down his natural at his natural. He's going to head over to his 3rd base location and put his unnatural natural there. It's like a bad tongue twister. How many drones does it take to make an unnatural natural? Naturally, it would only take 1 drone to make an unnatural natural, but only if it was naturalized in nature. I regret that. Showtime's going to get his first gas. His gateway is halfway done and he continues to chrono boost probes. Hey, can I give a shout out to one of our viewers named Parzek? He actually picked up on my Destiny Cloudfist build reference the other day. And now I'm glad I'm not the only human that remembers that. Props to a certain caster named Husky for bringing us that piece of joy. And props to Showtime for putting down a Nexus. Oh come on, I timed that right. Showtime was late. That's it, Sugdwang. Blame the pros. Our Zerg pro is not just any pro, he is the pro. And at the end of February, he'll be gearing up to take the greatest prize in all of Starcraft 2. He is Serral! Yes, you heard it here first, like nobody else has ever tried to predict that before. Hatch and spawning pool are about to complete. And once it does, Serral can get on with the business of making 2 queens and 4 lings. Because that is how it's done in Finland. Did you know that in Finland, the penalties for speeding are actually calculated based on your income? Apparently some CEOs have actually paid $100,000 fines for speeding. Hopefully they don't count Serral in his APM. Okay, a Stargate will be the tech choice for Showtime. Serral's Overlord got the scout on that. He's not going to be surprised, and he's going to get out of there. He knows there's at least a 50% chance of Void Rays coming out of there next to kill him. Seriously, man, Void Rays value their privacy. Oh, but Serral wants to get the first blood this game. He's going to cut off that probe. It is so dead. It is so not. How did it escape? Showtime just went through 4 lings and made me look ridiculous. First blood's still up for grabs then. Our adept is headed for the Zerg unnatural natural. There is a queen already there, as well as those 4 lings. It'll be tough to get anything more than scouting info. Will she, won't she? The queen's gonna follow the shade just in case. It's cancelled. And indeed, the adept is already heading back home. A Void Ray is indeed gonna be the first thing coming out of that Stargate. It's halfway done, as is the Zerg third, which is technically at the second base position. Showtime's at 2 adepts, going up to 3. It kinda looks like he's trying to repeat the glaive timing, but it could also just be that he's trying to make it look like that. Ling speed finishes up for Serral and he adds a spore at his main. Once again, Serral has been making queens non-stop. Void Ray is out and an oracle will be made behind it. The third base for the Zerg is just about done. That triggers Serral to send in his lings to spy on the third base location for Protoss. No sign of an expansion yet. Warp gates will complete for Showtime. That adept is coming back, but this time she's brought a friend. Serral's doubled up on his queens though, and he's about to finish making a third. He has. Whenever there's more queens than adepts, that's a rough go. Showtime does force the drone pull. This really is a Queen of Palooza. If you ask those adepts, they'd tell you there were so many queens, it was a bit of a drag. Ba-doom-doom. Drag queen? Nobody gets it? No. Even that Void Ray's shaking his head at me. Alright, Serral's getting his lair tech and adding spores at his other 2 bases. There's an oracle out on that map now. Whoa, second Stargate for Showtime. And he's gone back to Void Ray production. Serral's getting a Roach Warren. Roaches have utility in just about every situation, but technically not too great against Void Rays. Serral actually guessed the location of the attack wrong. He shuttled his 3rd queen over to the left-hand side at his main. Fortunately, it didn't matter. The Oracle's stasis ward was a bit of a dud. There's that second Stargate. Okay, Serral's getting Overlord speed, and he's up to 5 queens, building a 6th. This is starting to look like what he tried in Game 1. And look how he's shaping his creep spread on the minimap. He's running it forward from his natural on the right-hand side of his base. Oh, we've got an Oracle dive happening here. Queens are going to try to keep it out. The Oracle has to be noting just how many there are of those queens. That might be why Showtime's going for double Void Ray production. And it's official. Serral is making Overlord sacks. Those aren't dorsal sacks, people. Those are ventral. You might even say it was Goldman Sachs. Or maybe Saks Fifth Avenue. Serral's gonna try the German taxi once again. Showtime's Oracle tagged it. He knows. And now he sends his Void Rays to try to put a stop to it. This is so micro-intensive for our Zerg player. This meta is so cool. It is so stressful for both players. It is a very tough hold for Showtime. And Serral has just crossed the halfway point. I can't help but notice that creep highway I drew to your attention is proving to be quite irrelevant. Showtime's got all 4 of his voids linked up. He kills the first Overlord, but it was empty. The second was empty too. The taxis are gone, but their passengers are pretty close to their intended destination. They're gonna have to kind of walk the last 2 blocks by themselves. Showtime does not have his usual forward shield batteries at his 3rd. There are 2 in the mineral line though. Showtime's up to 6 Void Rays. 7 and 8 are in production. I'm thinking this is going to be all about the transfuse micro. If the Queens beat back the Void, Zerg wins this. Showtime doesn't have much else. Serral's just ordered 20 more lanes. He's going to pour it on. He's also got a Hydra Den in the works. So he's making Ravagers right in his base. Or the Rebel Pile, formerly known as a third base. That's our first laser light show. And now the attack reroutes to the wall at the natural. Zealots are guarding the ramp, but they are not going to last long. The Void Rays take position in front of the shield batteries. That is a ton of firepower bearing down on those Ravagers. Do the Queens still have enough transfuse energy to make this happen? Files raining down on the front gate. Oh, the Zealots pulled back to dodge, and now the Lings are inside. Showtime pulls his entire defense force to rescue his main. He catches a mistake and pulls his Void Rays back. The Zealots and the Adepts will get the cleanup. Just 2 probes lost. But now the Cyber Core is getting awfully low. Serral focuses down a pylon and deactivates one of the warp gates. Showtime is supply blocked and the roaches are getting inside. The last battery's destroyed and Showtime makes his move. The Zealots and Adepts have returned to reinforce. Even the Oracle's coming back. The core falls! Who's got this? It's gonna be close. The Queen falls, only 5 left. And the Ravagers are done. Showtime is holding this. The Queens do not have the transfuse energy to take on that many Void Rays. The question is though, has Serral done the damage he needed to do? Oh, the Queen carcass slides down the ramp. That is so sick. Showtime gets the cleanup and immediately moves to counter. He's got his 8 Void Rays. But Serral's already making Hydras en masse. He's got the Groove Spine upgrade. Showtime's gonna rebuild his 3rd, Serral's gonna start a 4th. Those Void Rays could be paper tigers. They don't have a lot of hit points on them. Maybe glass cannon is a better description, because they sure do have a lot of firepower between them. Oh, here comes fresh Queens and fresh Hydras. Showtime tags the army, and then he's gonna look to see if he can come at Serral a different way. Oh, I like this. He's put down a proxy pylon so he can warp in some ground units. Serral is all anti-air right now. Hydra speed is getting researched. Showtime is getting his new core back. And it's a big warp in of Adepts. It's a slow warp in though. There's no gateway or nexus within range. I like the choice of Adepts. They do that bonus damage against light, which Hydras are. Not Queens though. Just don't tell them that to their face. They don't like it when you tell them they're not the light type. Are you saying I'm fat? No, baby, no. I'm just saying you're not vulnerable to Adepts. Oh, it's the Serral Ling counter. He's so good at that. It's like shades of J-Dong. He always finds a way to put those Lings where they shouldn't be. Oh, those poor battered Void Rays. They cannot go toe-to-toe with his army. Oh, the wall is open. The Lings are going to get inside and cause more chaos. That's a distraction Showtime cannot afford. He's got to micro his main attack or his Voids will fall. That Overlord cloud is wrecking my vision of the battle. Serral's doing it on purpose to force a misclick out of Showtime. Try a side angle, but all I can see is that the Void Rays have no hit points. It looks like their prismatic alignment is on, but there's no actual armored units here. Oh, I think it's happening now. The Voids are falling like dominoes. GG. And just like that, Showtime is on the brink of elimination. So I think this is how Game 1 was supposed to go for Serral. He detects his opponent going double Stargate and racking up the Void Rays. He responds by making a crazy amount of Queens. He gets Overlord speed and puts sacks on 2 Overlords. He loads him up with 6 Queens and he brings him to the Protoss doorstep. In Game 1, Showtime kills the Overlords while a bunch of Queens are still stuck inside. In Game 3, Serral gets the unload. With 6 Queens backed with transfuse energy, it becomes very hard for the Protoss to hold. Credit to Lambo for inventing this build. Showtime will just have to call up his German colleague and complain that he's unleashed this strategy on the world. My bias is I love it because it's micro-intensive, and that makes great for audience viewing. And speaking of viewing, if you find you enjoy watching StarCraft in 4K, I recommend you hit the subscribe button. For reasons of good taste, Google does not recommend my channel in people's feeds very often. So subscribing and hitting that bell icon is the best way to make sure you get that 4K goodness. But forget all that, because I just want to get us to Game 4. Adjutant, if you would, please.
The game begins now.
Is Showtime on his last breath here? Will his amazing Game 1 be all for naught? Or does he tie it up and take us to a Game 5? Our Protoss player has an incredible 67% win rate against Zerg. He wins 2/3 of his game against Zerg pros. He is Showtime! Though I guess it bears mentioning that Serral might not be just any Zerg pro. Showtime went years before he won a series against Serral, but he just might be in the very best form of his professional career. I mean, look at the way he puts down that gateway. His probe doesn't even look behind him. Partly because he doesn't have a neck, but it's also confidence. Serral's gonna enjoy putting his natural in the right place this time. Showtime will afford him that professional courtesy. Overlord and the probe are gonna give each other stink eye as they pass on the white sand. Is that white sand or is it vanilla frosting? I'm never sure which. Or maybe somebody did a really bad job with the liquid cement. Anyway, the probe is going to get confirmation that Serral is once again doing the exact same build. Serral seems to have no fear and no incentive to vary his opening. Translated into English, his name means I am better than you at everything, for I am Serral! And so the stage is set, the pressure cooker is on the Protoss. There's that black hole nexus. Did you know that the theory of relativity provides that if you fall into a black hole, putting aside for a second that you'll be annihilated, time would actually slow down for you relative to the people who are watching you fall in. So that would give you plenty of time to complain that everybody is watching you when they should be helping you, obviously. Anyway, if I truly understood how relativity works, I'd be out there doing something useful with my life. That's what's holding me back, relativity. Anyway, Zerg doesn't need a fancy black hole to build a base. Or a spawning pool. 2 queens and 4 lings is all Zerg needs to get things going. Cybercore completes and we'll see if Showtime's gonna go for another gateway. This time he starts warp gates right away and oh, he's got a proxy pylon. There's no stashing pylon in that main base. There's a chrono boosted adept so that overlord sees everything as it should be. Nothing unusual here, no sir. It is definitely not the case that Showtime is making a proxy Twilight Council. Showtime is not giving up on the glaives. Serral plants his third on that vanilla frosting. And that Zergling wants to tie up the series on First Bloods. No, he chickens out. He knows map control belongs to that adept. Showtime is gonna make a stalker. The single stalker is the new sign for I do not want overlords peering in my base. Ling speed's halfway done, and I don't think the stalker can actually get the overlord. And when no void ray comes by to kill it, Serral will have to deduce that some other tech is being built. Showtime's gonna add a gateway to his proxy. Putting aside that Showtime just needs a bunch of gates anyway, having one next to your proxy pylon lets things warp in faster. Not all warp-ins are created equal. It's so elitist, I tell ya. Oh yeah, Serral's sending his lings everywhere to start looking. He can smell it. He knows something's up. Roger, Houston, we've got confirmation on those resonating glaives. I mean, your glaive's gotta be resonating, people. If your glaive doesn't resonate with you, you might as well chuck it and just get yourself a really big axe. Now I've got this image of all these adepts suddenly charging over, carrying these massive, oversized dwarven battle axes. And the Zerg's like, what? The Stalker's trying to run back and forth between his 2 bases to keep those overlords out. 3rd base is done and Serral's going heavy on the queens once again. Also a Roach Warren, which is definitely what he wants here. Showtime's adding extra gates both at his proxy and at home. Makes it kinda hard to decide if he's going all in or not. The gateway warps in and does its best impression of a Dolby sound trailer. The adepts are piling up. Disappointingly though, they have not brought battle axes. The first 5 are moving out, which could be fortuitous because there's some lings out there for them to hit. Oh, the vision blockers work in Showtime's favor. Amazing reaction by Serral. Most players would have lost all their lings from that. And there's the 5-gate warping to reinforce. 10 adepts on the map. Correction, 10 adepts shading in Serral's base. Showtime terminates the shade on the ramp. Showtime's really not afraid to stand and fight with it. And I think Serral's just happy with that. He really is quite content to trade out roaches for adepts. Anything but drones, which he's had to pull at his main. Serral's got 5 queens on those adepts. He's gonna rip them down. The escape shade goes rippling through the queens. 18 lings in production. I don't really like lings against adepts, but I'm not so sure that's what Serral has in mind. I think Serral's feeling confident with how this is going, and he's already planning his counterattack. He likes the roaches he has for his defense. Showtime is getting a head start on his immortal transition. It's actually a proxy robo. I know I've said it before, but one of the goals of a glaive timing is to force out roaches that can fall prey to your immortals. The roaches really suck up the Zerg's supply, and then if they have to fight immortals, they become hyper inefficient. Roaches aren't bad units at all, they just don't like immortals. Hardened shield and an armor bonus? Yikes. Most adept strategies involve going side to side and pushing and pulling the Zerg in 2 directions. Showtime is unusually comfortable with just standing up and fighting with them. Now they've got their big Uncle Bob with them. Oh, I think I saw those Zerglings take off. Didn't I tell you this? Serral is so good at this, getting those lings where they're not supposed to be. He's gonna catch the second immortal as it pops out. And now I look foolish because Serral saw the immortal transition before I did. And of course, lings are a great counter to immortals. This is a pretty neat game. Showtime's not doing any huge damage so far, but he is keeping Serral's drone count suppressed. He got the kill on the 3rd, and until Serral's new 3rd that he started at his bottom finishes, he's going to be down to 2 bases. Showtime's starting a warp prism. That's going to give him even more options. Though that is 1 less immortal. Oh, Serral's chewing on the proxies again. Showtime might not get the immortal or the warp prism. He's going to lose the gateway, and he's going to lose the robo. Yes, the warp prism got snuffed out there. What Showtime is left with is a very impressive adept count. So this time it's Serral who's dictated his opponent's composition. And now Serral is making roaches. They are great against adepts, and he's less likely to have to worry about immortals anytime soon. Except for the one that's still alive. Oh, facepalm, there's no real defense at the proxy again. Serral's not going to try to save it this time. He's going to kill the 3rd. And Serral's Ravager roaches plan to kill him for it. I like the positioning on the adept behind the Twilight. Very hard for the lings to kill it. Showtime might actually hold that off with strategic warp-in positioning. Oh, look at this. It's a Dark Shrine and a Warp Gate explosion. Showtime has hit the pause button on his attack and he's planning for his transition. Can the Dark Templar save Ire? Because if Showtime loses this game, his home world falls. That lone adept does not enjoy the same great positioning. But there is still one wedged in back there. The adept horde is gonna check if Serral's wall is tight. It is. That means his only real choices is to pull back or battle the roaches. Oh, the Twilight Council's lost its shields. It's deep in the yellow now. The Twilight Council is such a funny building. It's a critical component in your tech tree, but it doesn't actually unlock any unit. Oh, those adepts look angry. They haven't been able to get too much done and they're not happy about it. Perhaps where they have failed, the DTs can succeed. They are being warped in. Showtime started a backup Twilight Council, even though he hasn't lost his first one. And he's making a forge. There's no numeric upgrades in this game so far. Serral's got a pending upgrade lead. He's already started his +1 range attack. It may be paid for, but it's still an item on his wish list. That hatch is badly wounded. There might be enough firepower here to take it down, but not if the adepts can't get close enough to actually shoot at it. Oh, the Mandalorian says this is not the way. The roaches have the concave and the ramp. Showtime was trying to attract attention so he could get his Dark Templar in. I see, he had to make his adepts an attractive target. Unfortunately, the first wave of DTs do not get past the Queen of Palooza. There was a spore there for vision. There's not quite a spore in the 3rd just yet, though there is now. Man, I'm sorry, I'm like yesterday's newspaper. If it was a newspaper that was in 4K and free of ads. Alright, Showtime gets himself a worker lead. He's way down on supply, but his opponent is roach heavy. Showtime is not out of this. He's started his 3rd base. Serral finally has a moment to start roach speed. He's been missing that. Showtime's gonna get himself Zealot legs. Never skip leg day, people. Especially if you're a shock trooper from the planet Ire. Though, have you seen the toenails on the Protoss? Those guys all seriously need a pedicure. No wonder they don't like shoes. They'd rip their Nikes right open. Alright, Showtime heads back to his base. He's gonna rebuild his robo there and get his shield batteries up. If he's to win this game, he's gotta find a way to survive the next 2 minutes. Serral knows it's his turn. He finishes Baneling Nest and is starting Baneling speed, centrifugal hooks. Serral may like his position. He may decide he wants to explode his way to victory by just trading out units. Serral's Baneling control is really stellar. Not to demotivate those Zerglings, but that Twilight Council really is obsolete at this point. Serral is stacking a horde. Serral's figured out the endless attacks have stopped. He wants to capitalize on this momentum shift. It's Ravager Roach Bane. The centrifugal hooks are not yet done though. Showtime sends out his hallucinated scouts and they are going to be so glad that they're intangible. Showtime has held off far worse before, but this is still going to be a very tall order. Serral's going to be reinforcing. He's adding 10 more Banelings. Oh, and he's getting his fourth up behind this, his original third base. Sentries with the force field to keep those Banelings back. Showtime activates the photon overcharge. This is no time to be undercharged. Serral pulls back. He can let that time out. Showtime is warping in Stalkers. Not quite immortals, but a cheap and fast way to get bonus damage against armor. Showtime's counterattack is foiled by the wall. The adepts are trapped on the side that is littered with queens. Showtime broke down the wall, but Serral plugged it with Zerg. And speaking of walls, how about those clutch force fields? Showtime has got to keep those Banelings at bay. Because otherwise this will happen. Emerald fireworks of acid. All of Showtime's probes are at this base, and the Banelings are getting in. It's been a great series, but I think it's about to end in a crushing wave of Zerg. Showtime is down to one immortal and a pair of knitting needles. And there's the GG. Serral will take the series. 3 games to 1. Anybody else notice that our victory dance clips are not 4K? I'm harboring plans to do something about that. Anyway, it is what we call a Canadian sweep. It's an exceptionally polite sweep. You let your opponent win the first one, and then you crush them in the 3 games that follow. If you're half as exhausted as I am after that awesome series, you don't want to hear me wax on about it. So I'll just say from my base to yours, Zugzwang out. To continue your Starcraft journey, Nova advises you to click the video in the upper rectangle. But Kerrigan warns you to watch your 6 and click the video in the bottom rectangle. Or you can stimpack your Starcraft experience. Subscribe to Zugzwang Starcraft. Just hit the circle. From my base to yours, Zugzwang out.